Hey, what's up? It's Brandon, author of these books that you see here before you, and today I want to talk to you about showing versus telling when writing fiction. So let's jump onto the page and get started. So, showing versus telling, you've probably heard that when researching the writing process. People say, show, don't tell when you write fiction. And what does that really mean exactly? We're going to get into some examples here, but first, before we do that, let's talk about the basic concept. Showing versus telling when it comes to writing fiction basically means you're giving the reader sensory details and action so that they can see and visualize and perhaps even experience the scene firsthand. They feel like they're in the story, they're in the scene, rather than just telling them. And this is going to make more sense as we do some examples. You don't have to show everything when you write fiction. You don't have to use sensory details on every page, every paragraph, every sentence, because that can get a little wearying for the reader. So you use it selectively. So what does that mean exactly? Show versus tell. Let's just look at some examples here. Now I've got a really big font size for those people who are reading or watching on teeny tiny screens. So let's just start with a little sentence here. Let's imagine that this is in a novel. Arya is a character, no relation to the one from Game of Thrones. Arya was scared. So this is an example of telling in fiction writing. Yes, it conveys information, right? It tells us something. We've learned that Arya is scared. But we don't really see this. If you're reading a book and you come across this, Arya was scared, it doesn't help you visualize anything. It doesn't pull you into the scene. You can't really picture it in your mind. So it kind of falls flat. So let's say that we did something a little bit better. Let's start by saying Arya took one step back, followed by another. Something like that. Okay, so now we have action. So this is not complete yet, but you can almost picture this in your head. She took one step back, followed by another. It's kind of like when someone sees something shocking or terrifying, they hesitate. They kind of take little small steps backwards. Maybe their mouth hangs open. That's a little cliched, but you get the idea. So already we have a better way for the reader to experience this scene compared to the one where it just said she was scared. Let's build onto this a little bit. Maybe we say one hand went to her chest. I'm just spitballing a little bit here, so bear with me. This is live fiction writing. You're in the middle of it. The other clenched at her side, or clenched by her side, or something like that. So now we have even more showing versus telling. So we went from Arya was scared, which only conveys information, doesn't pull us into the scene, doesn't help us feel anything, doesn't evoke any emotion. It's just terrible. Let's get rid of it. And then from that, we went to Arya took one step back, followed by another. One hand went to her chest, the other clenched at her side. You can start to feel this, right? And you can certainly see it. You can see this person almost becoming paralyzed. Her body's becoming rigid. She's almost stumbling backwards. So these are the things that people do when they're afraid. Now I've showed you these things instead of just telling you about them. And then we could take it even a step further. Maybe we want to add some auditory or input. We've got 5 senses, so we can use all of them in writing, or certainly some of them. And maybe we say something like, a small noise escaped her lips. I don't know if I like noise, but that's how it works. A small sound, a small gasp, something like that. Gasp is kind of cliched. So let me go back and put the original one back. Arya was scared. Boo, it's boring. Compare that with this. Arya took one step back, followed by another. Maybe we want a little pause there for the reader, so we add a comma. One hand went to her chest, the other clenched at her side. A small sound escaped her lips, like you can see, you can hear, you can almost experience Arya's fear in this version. So in the top, I was telling you that she was scared. And in the second version, I'm showing you how she is scared. I want to pull you into this scene. I want you to be there almost like in the background against the wall watching Arya have this experience, because this is an important moment in the book or in the story. And you don't have to do this for everything that you do when you write. And, the showing, when you use sensory details to show versus tell, make sure it's something, an important part of a scene, an important part of the story, something that is significant. I mean, maybe it has to do with your character experiencing something, or when you're creating a setting. So let's change in gears here and talk about how you can show versus tell when creating a setting. The setting is like where a story or a scene takes place, and it can be used to create a certain mood for the reader. So let's just say someone's walking into a basement. The basement was moist. I don't know about you, but I think moist has to be one of the funniest words in the English language. I'm not sure why it strikes me that way. So, all right, here again, I'm telling, right? This is a moment in a story. I'm describing the setting of this, and I want this setting I want you to feel and see, maybe even smell this setting, so that it pulls you into the scene. You can experience it through the main character's experience. But I can't do that if I just tell you certain things, like the basement was moist. So let's start to describe it. Let's say beads of moisture. What, I'm not saying water. I'm not saying what it is. So that adding a little vagueness there makes it super creepy. Beads of moisture trickled down over the bricks, or over the brickwork, something like that. Okay, so right away, beads of moisture trickled down over the brickwork. I'm not saying the basement was moist. You're seeing the moisture. You're actually seeing it in action. This is an active description, because I've got the word trickle there. I've got a verb instead of what. Up here, the verb is was. Was and is are very weak verbs. Sometimes you need to use them, but there's almost always a better way in fiction to use an active verb, like trickled. I could say seeped. I could say it ran down the wall in, rust-colored rivulets. There's a much better way to say it than was moist. This is telling. This is showing. So let's maybe even build onto this a little bit and say something like, it seemed like the walls themselves were alive and breathing. All right, let's compare these. Now this is suspenseful, right? This is creating a kind of, this setting here is creating a kind of mood. And that mood is like dark, suspenseful. This could be in a thriller. It could be in a horror novel. But just compare the difference. A character is entering a basement, and up here I'm just telling you, the basement was moist. Great. It conveys information, but it does nothing for me as a reader. Compare that to the second version. The basement, or beads of moisture trickled over the brickwork. It seemed like the walls themselves were alive and breathing. So this certainly shows you more. I could go on here to add some smells, I could say like something earthy, I could describe something organic and earthy. I'm just kind of freestyling here. That's how we do it, right? When you're writing, you just try things. An organic, earthy odor hung, there's an active verb, in the air. I don't know if I'm crazy about this, but this is how it works when you write. You write it, and then you read it, and you're like, okay, that's pretty good. I don't like this. There's too many adjectives here. Organic, what does that even mean? So let's just say an earthy odor. An earthy odor hung in the air. We all know what that means. It smells like soil. It smells like decay. It smells like a dank basement that you want to get the hell out of. But compare again. The basement was moist. That is me telling you, and that doesn't really do any good for you as a reader. So we replace that with beads of moisture trickled down the bricks. It seemed like the walls themselves were alive and breathing. An earthy odor hung in the air. I might even switch this up here so that I have the two descriptive things followed by this little simile, this little comparison. So the beads of moisture trickled down. An earthy odor hung in the air. It seemed like the walls themselves were alive and breathing. That I like. I might tweak it a little bit, but that is a hell of a lot better than the basement was moist. This is showing. The previous version was telling. And again, you have to be selective here. You use these kinds of sensory details and you drill down and you get very specific only when there's a reason to do so. If your character is experiencing an important part of a scene, like an emotion, an important emotion, you want to convey that, you can show it instead of telling, kind of like we did in the previous example with Arya. And then this is a setting that you really want the reader to feel. I want you to feel this setting. I want you to feel the moisture in the air. I want you to see and smell what the character is experiencing. So again, I slow down, I think about it, I get specific. I use the sensory details. I use active verbs like trickling down instead of was. And suddenly you have a much richer experience for the reader and you're going to pull them into the story. They're going to be more engaged. The story is going to be more compelling and gripping, and readers will be more likely to keep turning the pages. So there you have it. How to practice showing versus telling when writing fiction. I hope you like this video. I do a lot of videos like this on all aspects of the fiction writing process, how to write a novel, different little subjects where we drill down like we did with this one. If you found this helpful, go ahead and subscribe because I'm going to be publishing a lot more along these lines. If you have a question, drop it in the comments. I have a Q&A series that I do via videos here on YouTube, so feel free to ask a question. And also, if you like this video, just give it a thumbs up because that helps the channel, my channel, and it helps other people find these videos. And again, thanks for watching. Happy writing.